Hey everybody, it's Josie. Welcome back to Cedar Creek Homestead. Welcome into the kitchen. We're going to be making another recipe today. I have church singing and fellowship dinner tomorrow night. We have it once a month, and tomorrow is the day. It doesn't seem like it's been that long that we had our last one, but it is time again. And I wanted to bring you this recipe that I'm making, and it's for a chocolate cake. It is a homemade cake. Homemade frosting, and it's a recipe that you possibly would have heard of before. It's a chocolate wacky cake, crazy cake, depression cake, war cake. It has a lot of different names, and this recipe, they say, come from the Depression time when some of the ingredients that would normally go into baked goods were not available to a vast majority of people that lived in places other than a farm. That if you had cows and you had chickens, then you had access to milk and butter, and if you had chickens, you had access to eggs. So we know that a lot of people lived on rations, and I assure you that the rations that they were given were a whole lot less than what we're used to having today and working with today. And so this is a recipe from that time that those ladies used their ingenuity, and they came up with a way to make things so that they, I don't know, celebrate a birthday for a family member, or take something to a church function, or take something to a family that was in bereavement, or whatever the case may be. This is a recipe from that time. But we can enjoy this recipe today, and it's going to save us some money on milk, eggs, and butter. None of those are in this cake recipe. Now, I will tell you that in the recipe for the frosting, there is butter. The very first thing that I am going to do, I have a 9x13 pan here that I have already prepared. You can spray the baking spray on it, or you can use the your homemade pan release on it, either one. This recipe is made in the cake pan, but I will tell you that you can just as easily put this together in a bowl. If I was making this just to make it, I would put it in a bowl because it's more convenient that way. But for the sake of you seeing this recipe the way that some of our grandmas and great-grandmas might have made, I'm going to do it that way. This will make a 9x13, 2 rounds, cake rounds, or 24 cupcakes. We're going to make a cake today. So to this container, this baking dish, I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour and 2 cups of sugar. I've got my whisk. A lot of people ask about this. This is a whisk that is from Rada Cutlery, and I love it. And I'm just going to kind of blend the flour and the sugar together. Break up any clumps that either one of them might have. You are welcome to sift your flour. The next ingredient that I'm going to add is 1/2 of a cup of cocoa powder. Now, I will tell you that this is a doubled recipe, that a lot of the old recipes that you see were baked in an 8x8, and that would be fine for you know, a small family or a small crowd, or even individually, where you could cut these cake slices up and put them in the freezer. And I'm making a mess here, but I'm taking it to a church function, so I'm doubling this recipe. So I've added 1/2 cup of cocoa to 3 cups of flour and 2 cups of sugar. I'm going to go ahead and add the other dry ingredients to this, which is 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And I'm just going to add these right in. Now, of course, you know that you want to get that baking soda really incorporated in there so that you don't have any areas that you would get a bite of baking soda, because that wouldn't be pleasant. And you can already see that we would save a lot of time by putting it in a bowl, but we're going to do it the way that they did it. I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And we're just gonna smooth this out like this, best we can. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna stir it again. Okay. Now what they did in those days, they made 3 wells. They made to put their liquid ingredients in. And if you've never made this cake before, this is probably gonna have an ingredient in it that's gonna surprise you. I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of oil into one of the wells. And it, of course, overflowed. Then I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm just gonna add it right over here. If you can see this cake very well, you'll see that the oil has already got into one of the other wells. So I'm gonna put 2 teaspoons of vanilla right in there. And the third ingredient that we are going to add to this last remaining well is 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I pour it right in there. It's beginning to fizz a little bit, which we knew that would do that with that baking soda that's in there. This is one of the ways that this cake works with not having your eggs and your other ingredients in it, is because the baking soda and the vinegar are going to work together. Now don't worry about it. When it gets all said and done, you won't taste the vinegar, and do not leave the vinegar out because you won't have the leavening action that you need if it doesn't get in there and work with the baking soda. The last ingredient that they call for is 1 cup of hot water, 1 cup of hot coffee to bring out the chocolate flavor, or you can do all hot water or all coffee. Depends on you. So I have 2 cups of hot coffee that I'm pouring in here. And we're just going to carefully mix this together. I say carefully because I am a notorious mess maker. If you do it this way, you will probably see the benefit of mixing it all up in the bowl. However, this isn't hard. It's just that, you know, we're used to being able to mix it thoroughly in a bowl and make sure that all the ingredients are incorporated together. But we're going to do it the way they did it. So it took just a little bit to get it mixed up. This is really thick batter, almost like a brownie batter. And we're going to bake this up in a 300-degree oven for 30 to 35 minutes. And you're going to do just like any other cake that you bake, and you're going to check it to make sure for doneness just by sticking a toothpick in the middle and checking to make sure that it's set up and there's no batter on your toothpick. Now, I can tell. I don't know that you can see it. Let me see. Right in here, you can see that it's beginning to fizz just a little bit, where the baking soda and the vinegar is working together. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this in the oven. And when it's done, completely cooled, we will frost it with the chocolate frosting that we're getting ready to make. In my sifter, I have 2/3 of a cup of cocoa. And I like to sift cocoa and powdered sugar because they tend to be lumpy at times. And so I've got my my cocoa measured out, but I still want to run it through my sifter. To this, I'm adding 1 stick of melted butter. And I'm going to get the 2 of these put together. I'm such a messy cook. That's why you usually will see me with an apron on when I'm in the kitchen. Okay. So I got this mixed together, and I'm going to begin adding powdered sugar and milk alternately. This is going to take approximately 3 cups of powdered sugar and 1/3 of a cup of milk. You can use a little bit more milk at the end if it's still a little bit too thick for your liking. You can add just a smidge more milk. Don't dump a whole bunch in there, just a little bit. And like I told you, I'm going to do with my powdered sugar how I did my cocoa, because it tends to be lumpy. So I'm going to put my first cup in there. Going to add a little bit of the milk. I'm going to start using my mixer, and hopefully we don't get a terrible mess. Now ideally, you would have all of your powdered sugar and your cocoa already sifted, but I wanted to go through the long process here just to show you what I do and explain why I do it. You don't have to sift your powdered sugar, but I like a really smooth and okay, we have some milk left, but we are not going to add that. We don't need it because I still have to put a splash of vanilla in here, and not a lot, just a teaspoon of vanilla. And I suppose if you didn't want to add that, you don't have to, but I'm just going to add a little vanilla in. Oh, and I made a mess, kids. As this frosting sets up, it will become more firm. That's what we have right now. That's the consistency of it. And it is so good, and it's so rich. And it's going to be really good on top of that cake. I'm going to set the frosting aside, and when the cake comes out, it's got a few more minutes, and when it comes out, it will cool completely, and then we'll be able to frost this beautiful cake and have it for tomorrow. All right, my dears, the cake is out of the oven. It's cooled off. Our frosting has been sitting here waiting on it. You can see that it rose nicely. It did, as it cooled, sink down just a itty bitty bit, but not bad. We have plenty of frosting for that. And I think it's gonna be a beautiful, beautiful cake. So now it's time to pretty this thing up. Nice and smooth, beautiful icing. There's going to be plenty of icing for this cake. If you were to make cupcakes for sure, which this recipe is supposed to make 24 cupcakes, and I don't make many cupcakes. If the boys were here, I would probably make more cupcakes than I do. But when I'm taking it to a church function, I usually make a cake. I'm pretty sure, I know for sure that this frosting is definitely enough for 24 cupcakes. I have all the pans, all of the products that I need to make round cakes, but I always just do this. But maybe I'll expand my boundaries and go back to making some different shapes of cakes. I used to have, before our house burned, I had all kinds of stuff. And when we moved here, I just didn't replace everything. I had all kinds of fancy trifle bowls, and I don't have as many of those now. But who knows, maybe I'll get back into that. So, here we go. We have a beautiful homemade chocolate cake and homemade chocolate frosting. Butter, you could still make a beautiful cake. Now this cake, you could totally take the chocolate frosting off and just dust the cake with powdered sugar if you wanted to do that. Or you could put any other flavor of frosting on here that you wanted to. You could put a white frosting, you could put peanut butter frosting, you could, well, it's up to your imagination. Now, in my household, chocolate always won. Howie's favorite. No matter how many opportunities and chances you gave him to pick something else, chocolate with chocolate frosting was always his favorite. And he liked his cold. He would eat it hot if he was really hungry for cake. He liked warm cake, and he didn't care if the frosting was set up perfect or not. But his preference was cold cake, cold frosting, and a big tall glass of milk. My friends, this is Josie. I love you, I really do. Keep looking well to the ways of your household. And until next time, we're gone.